January has been a time, but I'm looking forward to now being February. Please, let's just move it along. I'm here to talk about my reading in January and my TBR for February. So let's start with my January wrap up. In terms of like how my January was, it was long. It was not the start that I was wanting. I mean, it started out well. I was very productive. I was very in my routine. And then I went to go visit my family in Perth. And everything got derailed. To no one's fault. I just got sick, very sick. And then I still had to do the things that I had to do when I was in Perth visiting my family. I didn't really get to see my mom a lot because she was traveling. That's why I was there in the first place, to take care of the house. So I was upset about that. I was very sick and I was just not having a good time. And then when I came back, I was still recovering. And then we had guests, which I was happy about because I haven't seen them in a while. It was my partner's mother and sister that came to visit us in this new house because we finally have room for them to stay. It was a really, really good time. I enjoyed having them here. It was really good. And now that they've left, I am trying to get my bearings back. I'm trying to get my routine back and my productivity back. And you know what? Me filming this video right now is already a sign that my productivity and my routine is coming back. But yeah, January was really shit. And I was already sick back in November and now I'm sick again. I'm sick of it. So my reading really reflected that. I did not read as much as I wanted to in January. If you remember my January TBR, these are the books that were in my January TBR video, and these are the ones that I did not read, and these are the ones that I have read. So let's get into the stats of my January wrap up. So I read 5 books in January and 1 DNF. And from those 5 books, 2 of them were rereads. And I read a total number of pages of 2,729 pages. I really thought I was gonna hit the 3,000 page mark in January, but alas, I will try and do it in February. In terms of star ratings, I already said I had 1 DNF, and then I had 1 3.5 star, 1 4 star, 1 4.75 star, and 1 5 star, which is the icing on the cake. At least I had a 5 star in January. So let's talk about my DNF first, because unfortunately, that was my first book of the year, and that is Ghostsmith by Nikki Palfredo. This is the second book in the Bonesmith duology, and I really enjoy Nikki Palfredo. I read her other series, Crown of Feathers, which I really, really enjoyed. One of my favorite YA trilogies, honestly. So I thought I'd pick up her new series, Bonesmith, which I thought was okay. Then I picked up Ghostsmith, and it was not okay. The issues that I had in Bonesmith was still prevalent in Ghostsmith, and that is kind of why I DNF'd it. I think I got about 250 pages in it. I gave it a good try. I tried to get back in the story and really connect with what was happening in the characters, because when I started it, I just knew I did not care what was happening. Because the issue that I had with Bonesmith is that it was very surface level. She was very much into the world building, which I thought was interesting and kept me going. But in terms of the characters, she didn't really delve into the character development. So I couldn't really root for the characters. And with the magic and the world building, it was built up, like I said, in book 1. And she was also introducing new concepts in book 2. I feel like if she were to do this, I felt like a trilogy would have been better, because she could have delved into the same amount of the magic system and the world building, but she could also delve into character development, and having that balance would have been really, really great. That's why I really loved her other trilogy, Crown of Feathers. But I still would pick up something else by Nikki Palfredo, because her world building and the uniqueness of her fantasy books is what I'm drawn to. So I will definitely give her other books a try. I think it's an unpopular opinion that I don't love Bonesmith. Other people do. So I think you should definitely give it a try. So this is kind of a fantasy horror because there are ghosts and death magic involved. So we follow a main character, Ren, who's training to become a Valkyrie in the House of Bones. And in order to become a Valkyrie, she has to go through this test. And she unfortunately does not pass this test and is banished to the wall. Think Game of Thrones, the wall where it separates the undead and the actual living. And also it's very similar as to the people on the other side of the wall don't believe that the undead really are on the other side of the wall. But anyway, Ren goes to the wall to guard it because she has shamed her family by not passing the test. And on the wall, a prince comes to visit, and the prince is then kidnapped kidnapped by the people who live over the wall, called the Ironsmiths, who were in the war that was started years ago by the Ghostsmiths and the Ironsmiths. And after that war, they were banished to beyond the wall. So the Ironsmiths kidnap this prince, and Ren takes upon itself to go and get the prince back by allying with herself with an Ironsmith. And that man, Julian, I did really like him in Boatsmith because he has a metal arm. And if you know me with a metal arm, I'm a sucker for it. But again, the character development, it just wasn't there, and I wasn't as invested in their romance and the characters. All of them are so 2D, which is such a shame because I see the potential of how good these characters could be and how nuanced they are. It's just really, really disappointing. So that was my first book of the year. What was yours? Let me know down in the comments. Hopefully it's not as disappointing and as bad as mine was. However, technically, the first book that I read and finished in the year of 2025 in the month of January is Lore Olympus Volume 6 by Rachel Smythe. This is one of my favorite, or the favorite, graphic novel series. Lore Olympus is a Greek-inspired or Greek retelling, and it follows Persephone and Hades and their love story, and there's so much more that goes on with this graphic novel series. It doesn't shy away from the topics that comes with Greek mythology, like, you know, sexual assault and violence, but really the core of this is about Persephone and Hades, and I love them. I will do anything to protect them, and also the art style in this is absolutely gorgeous. I remember binging this before it was traditionally published in Webtoon. Oh my god, I love it. And then I'm trying to collect the series physically, but I, again, don't have my books with me. I haven't been buying a lot of books, so I've been borrowing them from the library as they come out. I do have Volume 7 on hold. Hopefully it comes in soon because I just want to read more in this world. If it's not obvious, I gave this 5 stars. This is my 1 5-star of the month, and I've given all of the volumes 5 stars. I just love this volume so much, but definitely check trigger warnings before going in because, like I said, there is sexual assault in here. This particular volume, there is discussions about said sexual assault, and Rachel Smythe has also added content warnings. So that's physical and mental abuse, sexual trauma, and toxic relationships, which I can definitely attest to that. And I've always been a fan of Greek mythology, so I will take anything that I can get, even though it's in a graphic novel form. Honestly, stunning artwork. I really want to buy some prints to hang up in this room because it's just so gorgeous. If you haven't picked up this graphic novel series, I highly, highly recommend it. The second book that I read in the month of January is Malice by John Gwynne. This is the first book in the Faithful of the Fallen series, and I picked this up because of the catch-up book club that is hosted by Becca from Becca in the Books. And this particular start of the series has been on my physical TBR for years. I'm so glad that I picked this up. And I have a lot of fantasy series that I've bought way back when because I wanted to catch up and be in the know of what everyone is talking about. And reading this first book has given me so much accomplishment, and I cannot wait to actually finish the series and feel so much more accomplished. Or is it just me? But anyway, this is the first book in an epic fantasy series by John Gwynne, and this is his debut book. For a debut book, damn, it was very good. I gave this 4.75 stars. It wasn't quite 5 stars because it's the first book in a series. There's just a lot of build up. So it's not getting into the meat of the whole story. It's just build up, setting up our characters and stuff like that. So this book follows a plethora of characters. It's a multiple POV story. I'm pretty sure there's about 6 to 7 POVs in this, which I really, really enjoyed because you get a full scope of the story, and that's just one of my favorite things. So in this world, there was a war between the giants and the humans a long, long time ago. It was kind of like a god war that you had to pick a side. It's very much like good versus evil, angel versus demons, and you had to pick a side back then. And the war died down, and then now present day, you see some of that war starting to brew again. People are starting to pick sides, and there was a prophecy that was made long ago that a champion of each side will emerge, and you're just trying to figure out who those champions are. We have the Black Sun, which is, I guess, the evil one, and then you have the Bright Star, which is part of the good side. And again, you're trying to figure out who is who. And I feel like the first book made it obvious as to who the champions are. My theory is that things will change and shift throughout the series until we get the actual champions. And I'm very excited to get into it. Because of the multiple POVs in this, I was so invested in the characters. It's definitely very slow. You're establishing the world, you're establishing the character, you're establishing the politics, and you're also establishing this prophecy, and these people are also discovering the prophecy for the first time and like how they're navigating through that and trying to find the pieces that fit to the prophecy, and it was just so good. I guess our main character really is Corbin, my sweet, beautiful little baby Corbin. You follow him as a teenager. I'm pretty sure throughout the series you see him grow up and become a person of his own, a man of his own. I'm so invested in his story and what will happen to him that I really don't want anything to happen to him. I think I would be so devastated if anything happened to him. There's also an animal companion trope in this book, and there's actually quite a few animal deaths in this book. I guess trigger warnings for that. I normally can't handle animal deaths, but this one is not so bad. I still obviously feel sad and devastated that it happened, but I can get through it. But if you can't get through it, I don't think that this series or this book is for you. I can't say for the rest of the series, but I feel like there would be more animal deaths in the rest of the series because the animal companion trope is very strong in this. But anyway, I'm so invested already that I've already picked up the second book, spoiler alert, for my February TBR. I'm so glad I picked this up. So glad. The third book that I read in January was a reread, and that was Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. This is the second book in the Fourth Wing series. I was rereading this in order to pick up Onyx Storm, which we will get to in a sec. In Fourth Wing, we follow a main character, Violet, who is going to be a scribe, but her mother, the general, has other plans. She wants Violet to enter the Basgiath College to become a dragon rider. It's hard for her to become a dragon rider because she has a physical disability, and it's not really named in this series, but she basically has problems with her joints and everything. I feel like it's rheumatoid arthritis because she always has sore joints, she's always dislocating them, etc, etc. Because of that, it's going to be hard to become a dragon rider because when you get into this college, it's do or die, baby. Like, you are in danger constantly. You're either being killed from the task, you're either being killed from the people that are in the college, or you're being killed by dragons. So it's a very dangerous time. But anyway, she joins Basgiath College, and by being a dragon rider, you're going to have to go through a series of tasks and also bond to a dragon, and then eventually you graduate and join the army. And in Fourth Wing, Violet goes through her first year of this college where she bonds with dragons, etc, etc. It's such a unique take on the dragons. Like, the tropes have definitely been used, but the concept of the series in general is really unique, and I love dragons. I'm a sucker for dragons, and the way that the dragons are centered in this series is something that I really love, and I really enjoyed Fourth Wing. And then I picked up Iron Flame when it came out, and I still enjoyed it. It wasn't as fun, entertaining as Fourth Wing, and Iron Flame really focused on world building and really slowing it down and focusing on character development as well. The thing with Iron Flame that I didn't like is that our love interest in this, love him, was not present in most of the book because they were kept away from each other, and that's something I don't like in romance books or fantasy romance books, when the two main characters are separated from each other and you don't really get that development. So I didn't like that part of Iron Flame, but I really enjoyed the world building. So I gave this 4 stars, and I think I gave it 4.5 in my initial reread because the ending of Iron Flame is actually crazy. Did not see it coming, but it also reminded me of another series that I won't say in case it's a spoiler if you haven't read this or the other series. But yeah, did not see it coming. Really enjoyed Iron Flame. Gave it 4 stars. So like I said, I reread Iron Flame to pick up Onyx Storm, which is the third book, and I gave this 3.5 stars, guys. It's really disappointing. Not disappointing, but like, I don't know what happened. And I had to sit with my thoughts for a bit in order to figure out why this wasn't as good as the other two. So this third book really delved into the world building in this, and I felt like Rebecca Yarros got so excited with the world building that she just kept dumping and telling you about this world and everything, but not stopping to explain everything or go in depth with everything. It's all very surface level, and she's just going. We got introduced to new places in this world that just came out of left field, and the amount of time that we spent in these new places and like learning about these new places for me was not enough. It was so surface level, and then she tried to add more plot threads and other things that have made me ask more questions about everything but not getting any answers, and that really frustrated me. And there were other plot threads that were already made in the first 2 books that again was not answered. And I guess in general it frustrated me because we didn't get any answers. And that really hindered my enjoyment of this. And I also thought that because Fourth Wing was so fun and entertaining, I didn't think anything of it and didn't think any deeper into it. So when she pivoted in book 2 by, increasing her world building and trying to be serious about it, which is not a bad thing at all. But for me, I had to shift my expectations with this book specifically because she was delving even more into the world building, that I had to shift my expectations from fun, entertaining to serious and like trying to grasp everything. But the way she did the world building and the plot threads was not to my taste, and I got so frustrated that the novelty of it being fun and entertaining really dimmed. I hope that makes sense. But I still really, really enjoyed the characters in this because I'm invested in them, and the twists and turns that this book takes is crazy. Even the end of this book is also really, really crazy. So 3.5 stars. I will definitely continue on with the series, and a reread of this later down the line maybe will help me in grasping the world building. And the fifth and last book that I read in the month of January is Last Sacrifice by Rochelle Mead. This is also another reread, which completes my reread of Vampire Academy, and I gave this one 4 stars. It wasn't my favorite of the series. The fourth book, Spiritbound, was my favorite of the series. And Vampire Academy follows our main character Rose, who is a guardian, and guardians are meant to be protecting the Moroi, which are vampires that don't necessarily kill when they drink blood. They're more civilized vampires. And then you have the Strigoi, which is what the guardians are guarding the Moroi from. Strigois are your typical vicious vampires that are killing. There's no soul to them. They just are killing machines. And Rose has her best friend Basilissa, or Lissa, who is a Moroi, and she's been guarding Lissa from various threats, really. And that is very surface level synopsis of this series. You delve way more into the world, way more into the politics, and there's a romance in this. There's an age gap romance in this that's a bit taboo, but I love so much. And honestly, it's devastating, it's angsty. Rochelle Mead does grief and guilt or death emotions really, really well. That's why I really like Spiritbound, because it delves into those emotions and also politics as well. In the fourth book and in the fifth book, there's a lot of court politics going on. But the reason why I didn't enjoy or didn't like Last Sacrifice as much as Spiritbound is because this one was really, really plot heavy, and it just had a lot of telling, not showing when it comes to emotions, which is a real pivot from what I said about Spiritbound, where she delved into those emotions and really discussed them. But then in Last Sacrifice, it was just a lot of telling the emotions instead of showing. But either way, Vampire Academy is one of my favorite series, YA series, so I'm glad to have finished my reread. So those are the books that I read in January. So now let's get into my February TBR. As I said before, when I was talking about Malice, I have already started Valor Book 2 in the Faithful and the Fallen series by John Gwynne, and I am 84 pages in right now. I've sectioned them to like how many pages a day I should read them until I finish it. I did the same thing when I read Malice, and that has worked really, really well for me. And the reason why I delved into book 2 so fast, because this noggin is forgetting things very, very quickly, and this series has a lot of characters that I need to keep track of and who they're related to and who they're with, and a lot of politics as well that I need to keep track. So it's just digestible and doable if I read them in smaller sections each day, and I'm enjoying it a lot. The second book, I've heard, has a lot more POVs and less of Corbin's POV, which I'm a bit concerned because I love Corbin in the first book, as I said, and I want to know more about what's happening to him, etc. But as long as I can keep my eye on him and see him, even though if it's from another POV, I think I'll be okay. But yeah, I'm really, really excited to keep going with this second book. So the next book on my priority TBR, we'll get through the optionals later, is Where the Library Hides by Isabel Ibanez. This is the second book to the What the River Knows. I read What the River Knows in December and I enjoyed it, so I put a hold of the second book from my library, which I just got, hence why I didn't get to it in January, but also like I didn't have time. But this is the second and last book in the duology, so I'm excited to get into it and find out what's going to happen. We follow our main character Inez, who has found out that her parents have died in an expedition in Cairo. They are basically explorers and they find different artifacts and tombs in Cairo. Cairo. So Inez gets a letter informing that they're dead. So she's obviously devastated and she travels to Cairo to visit her uncle who sent that letter. And when she gets there, instead of seeing her uncle, he sends his assistant Wit. And that is our main love interest as well. And Inez is basically going to Cairo to find out what happened to her parents. And also she got a mysterious gold ring from her father for safekeeping, and she's trying to figure out the origins of that ring as well. And this duology is a historical fantasy duology that is set in 1885 Egypt. And I was very skeptical going into What the River Knows about the historical fantasy aspect about it, but because the Egyptian mythology is so heavy-handed that I did not even think it was a historical fantasy. So I really enjoyed that aspect of What the River Knows. So I'm excited to see that continue in the second book. I love Egyptian mythology as well as Greek mythology. And the way that book one ended in a cliffhanger, I'm dying to know what's going to happen in the second book. And I hope I really enjoyed the second book, and I hope it doesn't end up like Ghost Smith. Next up on my priority TBR is Kavitri by Aman J. Betty. This is a new YA fantasy series that I had my eye on when it came out because it is a Southeast Asian fantasy, and the author kindly reached out to me and sent me a copy, and he signed it and personalized it for me. Thank you so much to the author for sending this my way. So I want to read this. When it comes to Southeast Asian novels, I feel like the nostalgia really impacts my enjoyment from those books, which is to say I will enjoy this book regardless. And I'm going to be buddy reading this with my friend Abby from Abby Salter. And honestly, I can't tell you what this book is about, but we have a main character, Kavitri, and there is Jinn in this book, which is also one of my favorite things. And there is a secretive mage academy. So that's also really interesting. Some of my buzzwords there, even though I can't tell you what this book is about until I've read it. So look out for my February wrap up. Hopefully I would read this by then and I'll let you know what I think. And the last book in my priority TBR is Bloodlines by Rochelle Mead. So now that I've wrapped my Vampire Academy reread, I want to dive into the spin-off series, which is following a main character, Sydney, who is an alchemist. And she had dealings with Rose that I mentioned previously in the Vampire Academy series. And in the last book, she did some things that now she has to deal with the consequences with. And also there is a threat to a particular character in The Last Sacrifice that Sydney has been tasked to protect and guard. And she has to navigate that because in this world, alchemists despise vampires and they see helping vampires as like the worst thing in the world that you could do as an alchemist. So Sydney's in trouble for that. And she kind of has to navigate through all that while also protecting this vampire from a threat. I honestly can't remember anything about this series because I've read it once a long time ago. So I'm excited to dive into this and see what I think about this. I think when I read this series, I liked this series a lot. So I'll see how I feel when I finish my reread of this series and give you like a series wrap up and a comparison with Vampire Academy. And I buddy read the Vampire Academy with my friend Jess, and I'm still doing that with Bloodlines as well. So let's get into my optional category of my February TBR. And these are the books that I would like to get to, but if I don't get to it, it's fine. So the first book that I want to try and get to is Ruin by John Gwynne, and that is the third book in the series. Because like I said, if I don't read it back to back, I will forget things, and there's a lot of things that I need to keep track of, and the sections that I need to read per day has been helping. So hopefully I can continue that with Ruin. I don't have to finish it in February, but if I at least start it in February, that would be great. And then another book that I want to try and get to is Blood and Steel by Helen Scher. Now that I finished my Melissa K. Rourke journey, and I absolutely loved that journey, I thought I would journey on into a different author, and I will be seeing Helen Scher in May for the Books and Ball Gowns event in Sydney. So I thought I move on and start this series so that I can get some of the books signed if I really love this series. And I feel like I will because a lot of people do. So I will be the judge of that, I guess. So, not sure what this is about, which is very on brand for me. And we follow main character Althea, who's dreamed of being a warrior legend, but women are forbidden to wield blades in this world. But she has, of course, been training in secret her entire life, and she is trying to secure her place in the elite guard charged to protect the Five Kingdoms. However, there is a growing attraction to Wilder Hawthorne, her unwilling warrior chaperone. So will Althea pass the perilous initiation test and take her place as the champion of Thesmar? That's interesting. It kind of reminds me of Nesta and Cassian in a way in the Court of Silver Flames, because he's her trainer and she's trying to learn about combat and training. So it's giving me that. And I really enjoyed A Court of Silver Flames, so I have high hopes for this. Hopefully I get to it, because I feel like I need a new fantasy romance series to obsess about, so we'll see. And the last book that I want to try and get to is Once Smitten, Twice Shy by Chloe Leese. Chloe Leese is one of my favorite romance authors, and this is her new release. And this is the last book in the Bergamot Sister series, I want to say. And I've read the first two books. It's not as great as the Bergman Brothers series, which is fine, but I do enjoy the romance that Chloe Leese writes. And each of the books in the Bergamot Sister series has been a Shakespeare retelling. I feel like the first one is Taming of the Shrew. I can't remember what the second one is, but the third one, which is this one, is Shakespeare's 12th Night. Don't know what that means. So I think in this third book there is a marriage of convenience, which is my favorite romance trope. So I am going to enjoy this romance. If you've read it, let me know down in the comments what you think. So that is my February TBR. Very small, very short, because I'm filming a reading vlog right now. I don't know if it'll see the light of day, but I need to read books for that. So the TBR is going to be very short. So down in the comments, let me know what was your favorite book in January, and also let me know what you want to read in February. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!